Hello and welcome to looking at detailed methods in Chapter 2 of Great Expectations that you might be putting into your coursework if they fit. So here is the introduction, one of the big characters in Jo's life, his sister, and one of the structural points is this is the way she's introduced. This is our first experience of her, all through Pip's eyes. So it starts chapter 2. We've had chapter 1, which starts in the middle of the action with him being threatened by the convict, and then he goes back and explains his life to you in chapter 2. My sister, Mrs. Jo Gargery, was more than 20 years older than I and had established a great reputation with herself and the neighbours because she'd brought me up by hand. Having at that time to find out for myself what the expression meant, and knowing her to have a hard and heavy hand, and to be as much in the habit of laying it upon her husband as well as upon me, I suppose that Jo Gargery and I were both brought up by hand. So, the first thing you have to know is if you do something by hand, you do it yourself. You know that expression, it's handmade, it's done by hand. So the neighbours thought she was a wonderful woman because she brought up her brother by hand. But as a child, he's got a different meaning for it, and that's the sort of joke here, a sad joke. You might call it sardonic humour, but we'll come back to that. So number 1, this is, have I got a pen? This is her name in the novel. I'll just get a pen. I think I've got one now. Mrs. Jo Gargery. And that is the way she's explained to us. It's his sister. We never get it from her point of view, anything from her point of view. She's an object. She's a type in this novel. So it's an odd way to talk about your sister. You would normally, even then, I think, use your sister's Christian name, but we never find it out. So her identity is that she's Jo Gargery's Mrs. So that's the kind of distancing and the outside view of her. And then we get, she brought him up by hand, and then he didn't know what the expression meant, and that this woman is violent towards her husband as well as him. So he thinks bringing someone up by hand means hitting them, and her husband gets hit as well. So it's a sort of sad joke. You can't use the word joke. I'd have to help anyone with that. But it's a wry look at his own past and this violent woman, and done in quite a distanced way. So moving on to the next one then. And then he moves on to describe her and describe her character to you through her appearance. And we get here, she was not a good-looking woman, my sister, and I had a general impression she must have made Jo Gargery marry her by hand, beaten him into it. We never find out. It's a general impression by our narrator. We never find out how she ended up married to her opposite, who is this very beautiful man. So we've got a whole paragraph. So rather than being about her, we've got a paragraph on what he looks like in comparison. And he's setting her up as the scold. I can't remember what they call this in the AQA critical booklet, but if you look up that word as a noun, it's a naggy woman, a naggy older woman. So then we have the beauty of Jo established. Let's move on. And this is the last paragraph we're going to look at. It's the next one along. My sister, Mrs. Jo, so we're back on the through his eyes, and we're back onto her, with black hair and eyes, had such a prevailing redness of skin. I sometimes used to wonder whether it was possible she washed herself with a nutmeg grater instead of soap. She was tall and bony and almost always wore a coarse apron fastened over her figure behind with 2 loops, and having a square impregnable bib in front that was stuck full of pins and needles. She made it a powerful merit in herself and a strong reproach against Jo. Sorry, that shouldn't be there. I should have cut that out. That she wore this apron so much, though I really see no reason why she should have worn it at all. Well, why, if she did wear it at all, she should not have taken it off every day of her life. So he's setting up the type, and I can imagine this type. I've seen this type lots, and you don't get inside this type in the novel. You don't get these questions answered. Why she's like this? How does she marry Jo? Why does she wear the apron every day of her life? We never get inside her or to deepen that stereotype. And let's have a look at some things about her. Here's the stereotype. She's got red skin, and a little joke there, did she wash herself with a nutmeg grater? Her apron is coarse, and she's bony, and you might also say she's got these pins and needles. Where are they? Pins and needles. So all these things are this stereotype being established. I'll put est, which means nothing. It means established. She's conjuring up this picture of this woman, and I get it, but it doesn't go any further. You can't do it with every character, but I don't think it does with many of the female characters. Take you any further in. So that, no explanation. We have the male narrator here, the child narrator, but it's actually an adult if you look at it. I sometimes used to wonder. So this is an adult saying, when I was a child, I used to wonder. So we've got this adult looking back on this character, mainly looking inside his own head. I used to wonder, and what was going on here? I really see no reason why she wore it at all. This is him looking at his own head. No curiosity here about what was happening inside Mrs. Jo's head at all. The only other thing I say is this sort of humour here, that her apron is an impregnable bib on front of her. And impregnable is something you usually say about like a fortress. You can't get through it. You can't. Yeah, you can see the word pregnant in there. You can't get into it. And she is impregnable with her apron, with its pins and needles on top. But again, no explanations why. It's not part of the novel. What's gone on to make her like this? So the areas you need to make sure you can't say everything that I've said. It probably won't fit in. Not everything will fit into your essay. But we are talking about introducing her as a stereotype or a scold. Can't bother to write them on, so I'm just doing it like that. Oh, can I write it with this? Oh, yeah. 2, I've got a pen with a funny end. He is doing that. Oh, so 1A. Sorry, it's not 2. That's too slow, that. Oh. 1A, the stereotype. Oh, that's gone badly. Is her appearance. B, setting up the stereotype through her name. And the second big area you might want to talk about is the narrator, who is an adult, but not giving you inside this stereotype at all. And you're put on the side of the narrator, and you're laughing at Mrs. Jo through the humour. So don't just talk about the humour, talk about the humour putting you on the narrator's side, and the humour getting you to laugh at Mrs. Jo. Okay, that's the end of that one. Let me find the button.